let's go ahead and start with a word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity to learn more about the body you created and how we should take care of it. Guide us as we work through this information. In your name, amen. All right, so you're probably wondering why I'm here and not Dr. Bill. I actually am a doctor, not a medical doctor, but I have my doctorate. And I teach anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology at Adventist Health University. And I've been there for 18 years now, just about. So I've been teaching the sciences that long. But my passion is health and nutrition. And so I read and I study about diet and exercise and all that, just all the time. I actually started a master's degree in nutrition education several years ago, and I didn't progress very far because I got cancer and I had to stop. And so I still have that passion and that interest. And so I'm always trying to find out something new, and I just found new stuff this week just putting together this information. And so I hope that you'll find this valuable. I actually took a lecture that I give to my anatomy and physiology 2 students and kind of modified it for you. And so I hope that you leave here having learned a lot. And I do like participation, so feel free to ask questions. Feel free to answer when I ask, because I'm a questioner when I lecture. I don't want to just be up here, you know. I'm not a sage on the stage. All right. So what we're doing today is we're just going to go through some nutrition facts. So I got 2 food items that we had at work, and so I just took those and then found them online. So we're going to walk through the nutrition facts on the back of these 2 food items. So Sun Chips and baked Cheetos. Both of those sound pretty-ish healthy, right?
Baked Cheetos are definitely healthy.
So we're going to just look and see what actually is all involved. So the first thing, we're just going to start at the top, and we're going to start looking at the nutrition facts. And so the first thing at the top of the nutrition facts is the serving size. So do you actually look at the serving size?
No.
So first of all, there's 2 bits of information that it will say. It will say the servings per container. That doesn't mean the whole thing is 1 serving. Sometimes it is 1, but sometimes there's multiple in that serving. So you need to look to see how much of it you should be eating. And then there's also the serving size. How much food is each serving? So this can be in measurements like ounces or liters or grams or that kind of stuff. Or it could be number of food items. So if we take a look at our lovely little items here, the first thing you'll notice, how many servings are in the one on your left? Yeah, this one doesn't say how many servings, but it does tell you how big how many are in the serving, right? 16 chips. Do you actually count out 16 chips?
Yeah, I sometimes do.
Yeah. Or like the Cheetos. The Cheetos are the ones on, these are the Cheetos, so the 34 pieces. Do you count out 34 Cheetos? Yeah, I know. We don't think about those things.
With Cheetos, some of them are long and some are short.
I know.
So you want to make sure you get the long ones.
Is your serving size the same as my serving size?
They're supposed to be the same. So the second thing that you see on the ingredient facts or nutrition facts is the calories. Now, do you know what a calorie is? Yeah. So the definition is a measure of the capacity to do biological work. Yeah, that really helped, didn't it? And so another way of looking at it is 1 calorie is the amount of heat that will raise 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. Again, real helpful. So first of all, I'm going the wrong direction. Okay, I want to go backwards. Okay, I went too far. Okay, so there we go. First of all, what is a gram? Okay, can you visualize an almond? 1 almond weighs about a gram. Okay, so in this definition, we take a pot of water that's the size of an almond, and we measure the temperature of the water, and let's say this is in Celsius, so room temperature is usually around 25 degrees. So it says it's 25 degrees. Now we put it on the stove. How much heat energy do we have to put in our little pot to raise it up to 26? Is that going to be very much heat energy? We could blow on it and raise it 1 degrees, right? So that's basically what we're talking about is energy that you get from burning something. So if you burn our food, how much energy do you get from burning that? So how much does our body get from burning it? But when you look at packages, you don't see calories with a small c. You see calories with a big C or a K. So that's kilocalories. That means that it is the amount of heat that will raise 1 kilogram of water 1 degrees. So how big is a kilogram? Well, that's about almost 2.5 pounds. So now you have a pot of water that's about 2.5 pounds, and you put it on the stove, and you take the temperature, and it's 25 degrees, and then you turn on the heat. How much energy do you put in it to raise 1 degree? Up to 26. A little bit more, right? In fact, quite a bit more to raise a pot that big. If you're like me, it can take forever for that pot to get hotter when you're trying to cook oatmeal or something, you know? So, when you look at your food, our carbohydrates, that would be like your sugars and starches. If you take 1 gram, so how big is that going to be? Almond size. So let's say sugar, the size of an almond, so a little pile of sugar the size of an almond, and you convert that to heat energy or to energy, it would give you enough heat to raise your big pot of water not 1 degree, but up 4 degrees. So that's quite a bit of heat, right? Same with protein. If you had a little piece of tofu, notice I said tofu, and you converted that to energy, that would be enough to raise our pot of water from 25 degrees up to 29 degrees. Now, if we take fat, so let's say straight fat, we're going to take a little cube of butter that weighs 1 gram, and now we're going to convert that to energy. How much will it raise our pot of water? 9 degrees. So from 25 plus 9, 4. There's a reason I went into biology and not math. 34. Do you know what body temperature is? It's 37. So you're getting closer to body temp. That's pretty hot, right? That's raising it a lot. Now let's take a look at our calories. So we have 140 calories from one serving. How much is that going to raise our pot of water if we converted it to heat energy? 25 plus 140. And 100 degrees Celsius is boiling. So it would be boiling out of the pot, the amount of energy you would get from that. Now, do you understand a little bit more what calories are?
A lot of calories, 3,500 calories.
Yeah, a lot of calories. So that's the first thing you see, and you notice how big and bold it was? And this one's 130. Now, the next thing we're going to see, what do we see next on our list? So guess what we're going to talk about now? Fat. Okay? So when we talk about fat, what are we talking about? First of all, why do we need fat? Well, we do need fat. We need fat for energy. It's stored energy. If we don't have our carbohydrates for energy, which is our preferred, then we have something to go to get energy. We also need it for vitamin absorption. A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble vitamins. You need to have fat with them for them to get into your bloodstream. If you are taking vitamins with just water and there's no fat, those vitamins aren't going to get in. They have to have fat to go with them. So you do need some fat, but it depends on what kind. Your cells, you have trillions and trillions and trillions of cells in your body, and every one has a membrane made out of fat. So you also need fat to insulate your nerve cells. If you think of a cord, you look at any cord here, what's on the outside of a cord? Plastic. What's on the inside are the wires. You have plastic and rubber around it to insulate them so the electrical signal doesn't go where you don't want it to. We need that in our brain so that our electrical signals in our brain and our nerves don't go in the wrong place. And so we need this fat to insulate it, to wrap around. So we do need fat. The thing is where it's coming from. So a little bit more about fat. You may have had blood work done and they'll say, oh, your triglycerides are high or your triglycerides are low. What are triglycerides? Fats. They come from your food, but our body also makes them. And they can come in two forms. You've probably heard saturated versus unsaturated, right? So let's take a look. First of all, what is a triglyceride? What does tri mean? 3. So what we see here in the bottom, 1, 2, 3. 3 fatty acid chains, and here's the glycerol that makes it the glyceride. So those pieces together make a triglyceride. Now you might see in ingredients diglyceride or monoglyceride. What is that? They've just taken off some of these legs. If it's monoglyceride, they've taken off 2 legs. If it's diglyceride, they've taken off 1 leg. So that's all it is it's a fat that they've taken some of the legs off of. Okay? So then we have saturated versus unsaturated. So what does saturated mean? When something is saturated, it is? It's full, right? So what is this full of? It's full of hydrogens. Fats are called hydrocarbons because they're made out of mostly hydrogen and carbon. So where do we get these saturated fats? Animals. You make saturated fats. That's one thing I discovered. That is what our body stores and forms, is saturated fats. So these are made by livers. So anything that has a liver can make saturated fat. We do see it a little bit in some of our other products, but you especially see it in the animal. The problem with saturated fats, or one problem, is that they cause our liver to make cholesterol. And what happens with excess cholesterol. It clogs our arteries and increases our risk of heart attacks, strokes. And so, do we really want our liver to increase cholesterol levels? Only if we need the cholesterol. And we'll see where we actually use cholesterol in our body in just a little bit. We learned from Diabetes Undone that saturated fat is the gum that blocks the insulin receptors. And what does that lead to? That increases your risk of type 2 diabetes. And so, again, saturated fat is not something you want to be bringing into your body any more than necessary. So, what does it mean to be saturated? Here you have a picture. You notice how nice and straight that is? That's because it's full of hydrogens. There's nowhere you could put in more. And what is it like at room temperature? It's solid. And then we have the unsaturated. Notice it has a little bend. That's because you could put some more hydrogens into it. And what is it going to be like at room temperature? Liquid. That's because you can't stack them nice. Can you stack these nicely, one on top of the other? Yeah, you can stack them up real nice. How about these? No, you can't stack them, and that's really what happens. Tighter you can stack them, the more solid it will be. So, if we look at our 2 items, do we have any saturated fat? 3%. Now, does the persons tell you anything? No. But now you know the size of a gram. So what would this be? Half of an almond, right? And how about this one right here? That's a whole almond. So can you start seeing how much of something you have? That's in one little serving of chips. Okay? Now, it doesn't sound like much until you start visualizing the size. And that's what I do. I visualize, okay, how many, okay, this is 5. That would be 10 almonds. That's a lot, you know? So that's what I do. All right. So then sometimes you see trans fats or hydrogenated oils. And the word just tells you what has happened. Hydrogenated just means they've pumped it full of hydrogen. It was unsaturated. It was bent. And they pumped it full of hydrogen to straighten it out. What does that do? It moves it from an oil to a solid. It's moving it into the saturated. It was unsaturated. Now it is saturated. And our body doesn't really know how to deal with these that well because these are not natural. These are man-made. All right. So where do you find these? A lot of margins have it. Shortening is pretty much hydrogenated. Processed food. I was surprised in all the processed foods that have hydrogenated oils. When I started teaching this material about 18 years ago, I started going through my cupboards. And I was just amazed. Hot chocolate mix. It was in my hot chocolate mix. Peanut butter, crackers, tortillas. It was in so many places that I did not even imagine them. So that's one reason I do scratch now. Because when I make it from scratch, it doesn't have that stuff. One problem with trans fat is it stimulates increase in LDL. Have you heard of LDLs? Those are the bad, right? The bad ones. It actually stimulates their body to make more of these bad things. So it's actually very, very harmful. How about this one? Do you know what your platelets are? But what are they for? Platelets are for clots. Do you want platelets to be sticky. Because when you have a cut, the first thing you need to do is seal that off with like a little plug. And that's what the platelets do. They plug it up until we can make a nice clot, a scab. So it's our plug. But do you want these little pieces that make plugs to be sticky? What are they going to start doing? Sticking all over the place and making clots. So we really don't want that. All right. Now, we have unsaturated fats, and these aren't full, so where do we find them? We find them in a variety of places. You've probably seen polyunsaturated and monounsaturated. That just has to do with how many spaces there are. Mono means there's only one space for hydrogen to be added. Poly means there's more than one space where you can add hydrogens. So one is from oils, and you'll notice mono is seeds, some oils, but nuts, olives, avocados, more natural. So here we go. This one up here, does it look like you can add anything to it? It's pretty full. So that would be a saturated fatty acid. And then here, how about this one? How many places? Right here and right here. So would that be mono or poly? Poly. So that would be poly because there's multiple places that you can add hydrogen. All right, so let's take a look. We saw that there was some fat in there. Let's see. What in our ingredient list do you think is providing for those fats? Let's start here. Can you read it? Oh. Yeah, corn, sunflower, and or canola oil. So is that going to be saturated or unsaturated? Unsaturated because it's oil. And then over here, vegetable oil, corn, soybean, canola, sunflower, and then our milk, do you think that would be providing some of the saturated because it is animal? Yeah. All righty. So we do have to talk about cholesterol. Cholesterol only is found in animals. It is made in the liver. We do need it, but we don't need to get any in our diet. Our body can make all that we need. We need it for our membranes. Plants have real strong walls on their cells because they have fiber and all that stuff. But we don't want to have that kind of stiffness to our body. But we still need to stiffen things up a little. So cholesterol in our cells will stiffen it a little bit so that we have a little bit more stiffness. We also have hormones, testosterone, estrogen, calcitriol. Those are all hormones made from cholesterol. And so they're important. And then bile. Anybody know what you use bile for? Digestion. You need it to digest fats. So we need cholesterol to help digest fats. So we make this in our liver, and then we use the cholesterol where we need it. The liver makes the bile, then it goes into the small intestine to do its work. So this is what it looks like. I don't know if that's very helpful, but sometimes I'm a picture person. Now, the LDL and HDL. Does anybody know what that is? Yep, the lousy and the happy, right? So really what these are carriers. The L stands for lipoprotein. So they're carrying fats. They're carrying cholesterol. So we have a little, sequence here. First of all, we have one kind that carries fat to our fat cells. That's what comes in our food. And then if we have I'm not used to this remote yet. It's a little different than what I'm used to. So here in our liver, we make our VLDLs. That just means it's carrying fat and cholesterol, and it carries it to our fat cells. And when we get to the fat cells, we unload all the fat. Well, what kind of fat are we unloading? Because it's something we made in our body. We're unloading saturated fats, for starters. And then what's left over inside is cholesterol. And that's when it becomes the LDL. So here we have our little LDL, and where is it going? It's going to our cells. And what cells have receptors for them? These are our arteries. And our arteries have receptors for our cholesterol and the LDL. So they get to our arteries, and we have a little break in there, and they come in, and then we have macrophages that come in and start eating them, and we start bringing more and more and more into our wall, in our artery. And what happens to the artery? It bulges out, right? And is there room for blood to get through? No. And so that's what's happening is when we have excess, our body carries it over here to where we have receptors. Now, we do have a good one, right? The HDL. What does the HDL do? Carries it back to the liver, because do we need some cholesterol? Yes, and if our body needs to make some bile, we need to go and get some cholesterol. If we have some in stores, think of that as a store, but is that a good store? No, it's a kind of a store that's in the way. So we're going to come over here, get some of that cholesterol, and take it to the liver. So the HDL is just taking it to the liver to be used. So the less that comes in our diet, the less excess there is, and the less we'll store. Right? Yeah. Yes.
Does that take away your energy level?
No. I don't think it takes away it could take away energy level if you aren't getting blood flow to your organs. So if it's blocking the oxygen getting through with the blood, you're going to have reduced energy in that way. Yeah. All right, so here we have our HDL. It's picking it up, taking it to the liver. Taking it to the liver to make bile, so we can digest. So, do we have any cholesterol? 0.
Why does it have cholesterol in it if there's milk in it?
It's a small enough amount. There's a minimum that they have. Yeah. Yeah. You can have some in it, and if you ate multiple servings, then you might have enough for it to show up. But in one serving, it's a small enough amount that they don't have to record it. Good question. All right, next, what do we have next? We're going to skip the sodium for later, but what do we have next? Carbohydrates. What are our carbohydrates? Yes. Okay, yeah, let's take a look at how much. So 19 grams here. How many almonds would that be? 19 almonds. That's a good handful, right? How about sugars? 2 almonds worth of sugar in there. These are chips. Should there be sugar in chips?
Wouldn't some of that sugar then come from the corn?
Not where it says added sugar. Yeah. But you'll notice there's 19 and only 2 grams of sugar. That 19 means the rest of the 19, 2 is fiber, and the rest, which would be 15 grams, is starch, pretty much.
Do that again. It concerns me because I don't know what it means, total carbohydrates, and when you add up that stuff,
They're not telling you how much starch is in there.
okay, so you said you subtract the 4 and the,
The 2 from the dietary fiber, the 2 from the sugar,
yeah,
and then what's left over is the starch.
okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay? Yeah. No, this is why we're doing this, so that you understand what you're eating, because too often you don't. So carbohydrates, what do you need it for? Fuel. Your brain needs, I have a number right here, let me get it. 120 grams of glucose a day. So how many almonds worth of sugar does your brain need? 120 for the brain. Okay? So we need it, and our red blood cells need it too. And this is the best. What do people do when they're going to run marathons? They carbo load. They carbo load. They load up on these carbohydrates. So we need it, but what happens if you have too much? You do. First of all, you have it in sugar stores. The form is glycogen, and we store in our liver and our muscle cells, and we have enough for about 4 hours. So you can go about 4 hours without eating and have enough sugar to last. But if we have more than we can put in our sugar stores, then we're going to convert it to fat, and we'll store it in fat. But we also will convert some of it to cholesterol and saturated fats. So that's why we don't need to get any in our diet from the outside. We're getting it from our carbs. We have plenty that we can make from our carbs. This is something it just dawned on me. Yes?
Not complex carbohydrates.
Right. We're getting there. We're getting right there, because we're going back to the presentation you gave last time about fructose. We're getting there. This is just like, I did some research on this, because I had to get this straight. I had to get this figured out. So what are our carbohydrates? There are 3 different categories. Mono, which means one. So it's just one little sugar molecule. And so we have glucose, fructose, galactose. We're not going to really look at galactose, but glucose is what our body uses for energy. We have to convert our starch to glucose, and if we need to convert our fat to glucose, we can, because our brain needs that glucose. The brain needs 120 grams of glucose every day. So we need to have glucose. We also have fructose, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but our body can't use it for sugar, for energy. So what are we going to do? In what form? Fat. What kind of fat? Saturated fat. Okay? So again, do we need to eat these saturated fats? No. So most of our food doesn't come with these as is. We break apart larger molecules. So our next one are the large, this is what it looks like. Our next one we do get more so in our diet is disaccharides. That would be 2 sugars. So we have sucrose, and this is where we're getting our simple sugars, our simple carbohydrates. And this is sugar. That's the table sugar. That's what is listed as sugar. Whenever you see sugar in an ingredient, it's this kind, it's sucrose. Honey also fits into this category, syrup, and also our fruit has this kind of sugar in it. Okay? So it's made out of glucose, which what do we need it for? Fuel. And fructose? We don't. We make into saturated fat. So our sucrose, as we're going to see, well, lactose is from milk, and then maltose is 2 grains, but we're going to look more at that sucrose. I'm pushing the wrong button. Come on. There we go. So here we see our sucrose, glucose here, and fructose, half. So anytime you see sugar listed, half is glucose and half is fructose. So if it says there are 6 grams of sugar, how much is fructose? 3. And how big is that in almond size? 3 almonds of fructose that you're converting to saturated fat. Yeah, this is something I just discovered and really got into this week. I was like, I went and looked at the metabolic pathways and all this stuff. I'm like, no, this can't be. It is. I was like, wow. So I just did a little bit of research, and you're going to love this. This is the amount of sugar per item. So when you were seeing this, this means half of it's going to be glucose, half of it's going to be fructose that your body's going to make into saturated fat and cholesterol, okay? So sugar is 12 almonds, 1 tablespoon. It's all sugar, you know, so half of it, 6. But honey, this I cannot fathom, I can't get this through my head how a tablespoon of liquid honey can have more sugar than a tablespoon, unless because it's liquid and the other has airspace between the little grains of sugar. Maybe that's why there's more sugar, tablespoon by tablespoon. But so really, is it good for us? We use too much, right?
When you say is it good for us, it can be not bad for us unless you eat way too much.
Right.
It says a little honey for your stomach's sake.
Right. So we just need to be careful because we eat way too much added. So here is our fruit. Look at, now how big is an apple? And that has, how many tablespoons would be in that apple? Yeah, but see, it's got just a little bit more sugar, but it also has other things with it that slows it down and makes things move through. Look at this one. I love this one. I love strawberries, so I can eat all the strawberries I want. But I just want you to see that, yes, fruit is good for you, but can you get too much of a good thing? Because every time you look at these, half is going to be fructose, which your body converts to saturated fat.
So if you only eat half a cup of blueberries, then it'll only be 7
Right.
and half of the whole cup.
Yeah.
Because you have to put that 7, you have to cut that 7 in half.
Right. Yes, Chester?
Fructose in your plants is mostly bound up by the fiber.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
It does not go into cholesterol because it'll actually go on, it's excreted because of the fiber. It doesn't.
Okay. Okay, because I was trying to find that out, and I could not find that information. So I'm glad you shared that. So, that the fructose, because I know glucose, one thing that one thing that fiber does, and we'll get to fiber, is that it will absorb sugars, but apparently it absorbs that fructose and takes it out with it as it goes out as part of the feces.
That's the reason why you don't want apple juice. You want to eat the whole apple.
Right, exactly, because of fiber. And I'm glad you shared that, and Chester, thank you, because I knew glucose did that, but I didn't know that fructose did. All right, so Polly, this is what we get most of our carbs, hopefully, is our starch. And all it is glucose, and so this is our energy. And we find it in grains and legumes and starchy. Now the problem is what they do with the food. When they enrich it, what they've done is they've taken and stripped everything down to starch, and then they add a few things back, some vitamins back to make it look good. But when you strip everything off, then all it is glucose. And can you have too much? Yes. And we still can go through the cycle. But when we have the starch, when we have the fiber and the vitamins and the proteins, and we have the natural fats, those are what are on that seed part that they've removed when they make it into flour, enriched white flour or white rice. They're just stripping off all those good things and leaving it just starch, pretty much. Glycogen is our store. When we have more sugar that glucose than our body needs, we store it as glycogen. And if we take a look, here we have, what are these little green things? What do you think those are? Those are all glucose. They're just glucose linked together, and it's the energy sugar all linked together, and we just snip those apart in our digestive tract as we're getting ready to take them to the bloodstream, snip it into individual ones. So this is what's coming from our food, and then the extra we can store in this form. So how different does it look? And just a little bit more branching. This is very similar to starch. Starch is the storage for plants. Glycogen is the storage for people. Same material that we're storing. Now, the extra, we already know what we do with what's beyond what we can store. So, let's take a look at our list. So we saw the sugars. We also have here dietary fiber. What is fiber?
Carbohydrate.
It's a carbohydrate. But can our body digest it? No. It goes in, it goes out. Oh, I almost forgot this one before we go. High fructose corn syrup. Ugh, what is that? What does it sound like? What kind of sugar? Whoops. I keep doing that. Corn is glucose. It's starch. What they've done is taken that starch and added fructose to it. Just bombarded it, added that fructose. So now, some cases it's half and half. Why do they do that? Make it sweeter, but it is the use of corn. And there's a lot of corn in excess. So that's one thing they started doing, is making this corn syrup to use it in processed foods and stuff, because they had an excess of corn. And what do? We make corn oil, and we can make high fructose corn syrup with it. So it is a processed food. It's not natural. It doesn't come that way naturally. Now fiber. Fiber that resists digestion. We can't digest it. Can other animals digest it? Yes. Cows. What else, Diane? Goats. Goats can digest it. Yes. We can't, though. Where does it come from? Plants. Plants. So your fruits, that nice skin on the fruit, the skin on the vegetables, the strong walls, the skin on your beans, the little shell on your nuts, that little brown skin, the outer layer of our whole grains, those all have fiber. What do we need the fiber for? Well, first of all, fiber is kind of like a sponge. What do you use a sponge for? Absorb. Anything else? Cleaning. And it does both. rubs the walls and so kind of cleans the walls, makes mucus, scrubs it, scrubs our guts. It also, we have two kinds. We have water insoluble and water soluble. The water insoluble absorbs water like a sponge, absorbs water. And if you absorb water, you make it looser, and that's what allows your bowels to move nicely, is if you have fiber absorbing water, making it looser. Not only does fiber absorb water, but it also, the water soluble can absorb cholesterol. So if we're getting if we're getting cholesterol in our food and we have fiber, it can absorb that cholesterol and take the cholesterol out. If we don't have cholesterol in our food and we have bile, it will take some of that bile that is made out of cholesterol and take it out. So then our liver has to go to our blood vessels and get some more cholesterol to make bile. So fiber can help take cholesterol out. That's in the bile, so we need to go get some, make more bile. So it actually helps to lower the cholesterol in our body inside by taking bile out. So we want to have this fiber. And it does, fiber also absorbs glucose and fructose, and it will help get the glucose into your bloodstream slower. And so it helps a lot with people who are diabetic to help smooth out their blood sugars. Now, where do we get this water-soluble fiber? We get it from things like oats, beans, carrots, peas, brown rice, fruit, corn. Now, we get the other kind from pretty much all plant materials, but to get the soluble, we need to get it from the oats. I have oatmeal pretty much every morning. That's just guaranteed that the rest of the day will go smoothly. But then I love carrots too. If you notice, I went back and got seconds and thirds on the baby carrots. So, but that's, all really good things that you can eat multiple times through the day, fruits, whatever. So, are there any questions so far? Is it making sense now? Do you have a little bit better understanding of what is your food? Yeah, I'm hoping that now you're like, oh, now I know why I'm supposed to eat this. Or now I know why they say to hold back. All right, so this is what fiber looks like. And there's a reason it's called fiber, because it looks like fibers. What is it made out of? What do you think those little green? It's sugar. It's glucose. It's made out of the same thing as our starch. The difference is how they're linked together. We can't break these links apart. They're straight. Ours are spiral that are in starch. So our body can break one but not the other. It's just the way. But if you look at it, doesn't that kind of look like a sponge? Doesn't it look like you could scratch with it and absorb with it? There's a lot of space in there. You can add water, cholesterol, whatever. So that's fiber. All right. So we looked at our fiber. What's next on our list? Protein. 2 grams, so about 2 almonds worth. So here are our food items and our ingredients. We had whole corn. What would that be? Which category would that be? That's a trick question, because you're going to get carbohydrates mostly, but you're also going to get some fats from it, and you're also going to get some protein from it. So Then our oil, we know that. Our whole wheat. A little bit of fat, a little bit of protein, but mostly carbohydrate. Brown rice. So we're supposed to be having something in here to give us 2 grams of protein. Do you see anything right off? Corn, whole wheat, brown rice, oats. Those are going to be what's providing, each providing a little bit of protein, but enough to make 2 grams. You wouldn't expect that, would you? How about over here? Corn again, and whey, cheese, that's going to give a little protein. Protein right there, that'll give protein. So, just a little bit about proteins. First of all, why do we need proteins? I could spend the whole lecture time telling you all the different ways that we use protein in our body. There are so many places that we use protein. We have it in the blood, we have it in the cells, we have it in our hair, we have it a lot of places. We have a lot of it in our muscles. It's protein that actually does the contraction. We have our membranes of our cells have proteins on them, in them, below them. Our bones, what are bones made out of? Calcium. What is calcium going to be attached to? Protein. There's collagen fibers that run through our bones that this calcium attaches to make it hard, so that they're flexible and hard. Enzymes, we have enzymes all over. All the enzymes to break up our food, the enzymes to build things, to break things down throughout our body are all proteins. And then our antibodies who protect us, a lot of places we have proteins. But again, can we get too much? Yes. The thing is, what do we store everything in or as when we have too much? Fat. So what are we going to store protein in when we have too much? Fat. The problem is protein has some pieces that don't go into fat. So we have to take those pieces off. And in the process, some of our proteins require us to neutralize that piece we broke off. It's an acid. We break off a piece that's an acid, and we got to neutralize that acid, and we take calcium from our bones to do it. So these high protein diets actually can cause bone destruction. Yes, osteoporosis. It can cause osteoporosis, and that's one thing. How about what do we do with this excess calcium now that we've used it to neutralize? We got to filter it out, and what do you think, the kidneys like this? It's called, another term for kidney stones is calculi. So you can increases your risk of getting kidney stones when you're breaking down the calcium to deal with proteins. And like we said, the rest is converted to fat, and what kind of fat? Saturated fat. All right? Now, any protein that we don't store protein for later. We either use what we need for building or whatever, and the excess is going to be converted to fat. So this is just a little picture, and oops, I did it again. Here's our protein. We break it down, and where are these pieces going to? And then where is it going after the liver? Kidneys. All right. So, not good. Now, have you heard complete versus incomplete proteins? Yes. All it means is we need these 8 pieces. They have to be in our body to make our different materials that are made out of protein, but it's really not that big of a deal. Complete are found in animal, but what is one of the big proteins that Vegans use? Soy. So we get it all in soy. Quinoa. Anybody have my quinoa salad? You got your 8 amino acids. So it's not a big deal. The problem is when you're getting your 8 amino acids from animal protein, what else is coming in with it? Cholesterol. And all kinds of extra things, saturated fat. And so do we want to do that? So why not? Yes, you got the message. Make it yourself. So how about complete? You lack one. And this is found, one or more amino acids, and this is found in plants. But if you put a grain and legume together, you get them. Okay? So what's a grain that you like? Bread. What's a legume that you put with that bread? Peanut butter. Any Hispanics here? Beans and rice? Corn, pigeon peas and rice? Corn and black beans, rice and peas. Just so many combinations that you can come up with that you're getting it. And almond butter is not going to have the same amino acids because it's not a legume, it's a nut. So there's a little difference there. But I use that instead of peanut butter, and I just eat my soy. When you are getting your amino acids from plants, what are you getting with those amino acids? Fiber. You're getting the fiber. And so it's really worth to go that route. And antioxidants. Yes. We're just following the little thing on the back of the, I could be here for 3 hours. So we're not going to do that. So here's a little example. Corn has these amino acids, and beans have those, and you put them together and you get them all. Very simple. That's all you have to do. I already got ahead of myself with that one. We already looked at for protein. I forgot. Okay, what's the next thing on our list? Vitamins. And what else is there interspersed with vitamins? Calcium would be mineral. Iron would be mineral. Potassium would be mineral. And so we have vitamins and minerals. Again, small amounts. And so we're going to take a look. What are minerals? Inorganic materials plants get. And we get it from eating plants, and our cows get it, if we eat cows or chickens, they get it from eating plants. Now, if we want to get it from the natural source, we could do like Michael says and eat dirt. He thinks you need to eat dirt. I know. Pardon me? Yes. Yeah, The dirt idea isn't, I was making sure everybody was awake. Wasn't sure, starting to see glassy eyes. There are several that we see in our body, and these are the ones we usually see in our ingredients list. So let's see what we need them for. So sodium, if we want water somewhere in our body, we put sodium there and water will go. It reminds me of a little puppy dog. You just move the owner where you want the dog to be. So we want water here, we put sodium. We want water there, we put sodium. If a cell needs water, we put sodium. If we need, our kidneys work by moving sodium for water to follow. And if we need to lower our blood pressure, we actually have a hormone that tells the sodium to go and be in the urine so we can take water out, and that will help lower our blood pressure. So we do this for our water distribution. Wherever we want water to be, we put sodium. And we also need it for electrical impulses. That's how our electricity goes through our body, is we're going to use sodium because it is can generate an electrical signal. We also use it in our muscles for our electrical signals to contract. So it's important. The problem is do we need very much? No. I guess I didn't write down how much. But we only need a very small amount, and we get sometimes 10 to 20 times more than we need. So that's sodium. Potassium we also need. Potassium works with sodium. Potassium we use to help keep water in cells, because potassium is inside cells, sodium is usually out, but we can use sodium. We also use it for our electrical signals. They are partners. They work together, one direction, one the other, but they are very important to have both. Yes?
Kidney play a role with
Yes. Kidney can use the same hormone to get potassium out. So the kidney moves sodium and potassium. Part of the kidney, there's a trio that move together so water follows, and that trio is sodium, chloride, and potassium. So yes, kidneys do a lot with that. Chloride, it's part of our trio. Sodium and chloride go together. They work together. They're dealing with water together. But we also have it in our stomach. That's the acid. That's part of the acid in our stomach. So we need it to break down our food. Calcium, we know where that is, right? It's in our bones. We also need it for muscle contraction. And a very important place for it is heart contraction. I just covered this in lecture this week with my students. We talked about how sodium and calcium and potassium all play a role in the heart contraction. All right, and then we need it for blood clotting. Magnesium, we need it for enzymes and to transport. Phosphates, our genes, our cell membrane is fat and phosphates. Fat and phosphates make up our cells. And then we use it for energy. That is our energy, ATP. The P part is phosphate. All right, so which of these do we have in our list? We have calcium. Yep, that's our biggest mineral in our body. And potassium. Yeah. What are these other things on the other side? I lost my pointer. Anyways, what is thymine, niacin, riboflavin? What are those? They're vitamins. They're B vitamins. That's just the fancy name for them. So that leads us right to vitamins. So we have two categories of vitamins. Water soluble, what do you need to have with those vitamins for them to get into your bloodstream? Water. Is that a problem? No, because what's in your saliva? Water. What's in your stomach acids? What's in your small intestines? There's a lot of water in there. What's in your I don't think there's a whole lot of water in the bones except in the little cells. Oh, nothing in mine. So our two kinds of water soluble, we have vitamin C. Now you might see it, and I put the names that you might see it when it's added into your food. So added into the food, it might be called sodium ascorbate. That's when they add vitamin C in. What do we need it for? To make things. Make hemoglobin, Hemoglobin is what carries our oxygen in our blood. Very important. Makes collagen. That's what is in our bones, in our skin, in our hair, in a lot of places, and then other connective tissues. And then B vitamins, we need these to carry materials from one place to another. And these are really big molecules, and some of them, a lot of them we get from our plant foods. Then we have fat soluble, and I mentioned they have to have fat come with them. And these are the 4 groups. Palmitate is what you might see if it's been added into your food. Vitamin D, what do we need vitamin A for? What did your mom always say? Eat your carrots. Why? Because of the vitamin A precursor in it. All right? And then vitamin D, we need that to get calcium into the bloodstream. Where do we get vitamin D from? That's supplement. Vitamin K, we need that for blood clotting. So people who are on blood thinners, and they have to watch their K levels. And then vitamin E is an antioxidant. Well, vitamin A and C are also antioxidants, but have you heard that term? Do you have any clue what that means?
Means that things that you would put outside, if you put some things that you would put down and leave it for a while, oxidizes because it's the air.
You're on the right track. What happens is oxygen and other molecules can lose part of their structure. It's electron that they can lose, and when they lose one, they want to find one. So they start looking for it, and they look for it in our cell walls, cell membranes. They look for it in our genetic material. And if they steal that electron out of our genetic material, our chromosomes and DNA, they can cause mutation. So these free radicals are looking for that. Well, an antioxidant says, hey, I have these electrons, come get it from me. Get it from me instead of the genetic material. Get it from me instead of the cell membrane. Is it going to matter if they take it off of that vitamin? Does it matter to us? Yes, because it keeps us from getting cancer. So when we eat antioxidants, it provides that piece that these oxygen molecules and other molecules are looking for so they can get it from our food instead of our cells and our body. So that's why we want to have antioxidants. It provides for that. Wherever we live, we breathe all these things that have free radicals. We're constantly forming them. So we want to have something for them so that they're happy. All right. Okay, so I already said that. Now, last thing, we're almost done, is what else is in our lists? Colorings, preservatives, flavorings, emulsifiers, stabilizers. Good question. Emulsifier is what's going to take a fat and make it so it doesn't separate. So you know water and oil, you put it, shake it, and it separates. An emulsifier mixes it together and holds it together so it won't separate. So it will stay all mixed together. So if you want something, you have something with oil in it, you want to, salad dressings especially, a lot of times have water and oil, they put an emulsifier in there. So last thing, let's take a look. Are there any added items? I lost my little pointer. Yeah, let's look at the Cheetos. First of all, after the cornmeal, what do we have? Ferrous sulfate, that is added iron. Then niacin, an added B. Thymine, an added B. Mononitrate, it's thiamine mononitrate, riboflavin, folic acid, all added vitamins. Then we go towards the end, we have maltodextrin added. We have calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, monosodium glutamate, yellow 6, yellow 5, lactic acid, citric acid, all those others.
Are they added before they're processed or?
That's part of the processing. So as they're forming this, they're adding these items. So that's,
Is this just a trick that they do to add the vitamins so you think you get something that's nutritious?
kind of. What you'll notice is it's enriched cornmeal. That means they stuck stuff back in. So they must have removed stuff and then stuck stuff back in. All right, so I'm going to just go to the text that I used this morning. God said, I have given you every herb that yields seed. So herb that yields seed would be our grains. Herbs that yield seed also would be our beans, our legumes. Herbs that yield seed are the seeds, like sunflower seeds. And then every fruit that yields seed. What are the fruits? Well, we know what fruit is, but did you know that nuts are also fruits? And you eat the seed. The nut is actually the seed of the fruit. You can't eat the rest of the fruit. It's too hard. So, and then later, after they were out of the Garden of Eden, then he said, and you shall eat herbs of the fields. So that's when he added the vegetables. So now you can eat vegetables too.
So what's the ideal diet in summary?
The ideal diet is plant-based. Plant-based, right? Does it say anything about I've given you sugar?
Well, we make sugar.
But this is kind of what I gathered from all this, that God gave us these items in our food. We get this, if you think about it, we get that fructose in our fruit so that we can make the cholesterol our body needs for bile, right? It's when we have too much or it's coming in from another source. Oh, you said it's not there. But anyways, the glucose we can convert to fatty acids that we convert to. So we get it in our food to make all that our body needs when we eat these plants. We don't need to add in this stuff from other sources, from animals, from excess sugars, from chemicals, right? God gave us the perfect planned diet. And we just have a hard time following it. Yes, it does taste good, and I'm right there with you. I'm struggling too. I was really good all week, and then I was just like, those chocolate chips are calling my name. So I counted. I didn't eat a whole serving. And I just had the chocolate chips. And they were dark chocolate chips. But they're still chocolate chips. Anyways, so I know we're all on this, but I want us to be aware that God made us, and he gave us everything we need. And we just need to trust him to help us get there. And it's just one step at a time. You make one decision at a time. What can I do this week that will improve the body God gave me and make the temple a little bit more holy? All right? Any questions?
You have to eat carrots. We have to eat carrots. How much carrots would you eat per day?
I eat one serving a day. And that's about, I think a serving is about 1/2 cup cooked and 1 cup raw. I eat what I call the color diet, and it's not a diet. It's just I try every day to get 7 different colors in my food, and carrots is my favorite way to get orange. And it's 1 orange, and then my oranges are another orange. So that's, yeah. So, but it's usually a half to a cup, depending on how it's produced. Or
Tell them why you eat the colors.
why? To get the different phytochemicals.
Your color is for your antioxidants. So
Yep. Yeah.
That's your phytoalexins. That's all the things
Yep.
that fight cancer and everything else.
Yep.
Isn't it color?
Yep. So I have my purple every morning, blueberries. I have red in tomatoes, and I have my citrus, which is my orange. I have my orange, which is either sweet potatoes or carrots or orange squash. And then I have my dark greens, which is kale every day, my lighter greens, which is spinach every day. Then my whites are mushrooms, onions, and I'm missing a color, but I try.
Don't forget to eat beets and arugula.
Beets are in my purple category.
Okay, but don't forget to eat those. And arugula.
I don't like arugula, so I eat kale. But I just, any other comments?
We're told that the earth is so depleted now that when we eat these things, we're not getting what we should get. So we need supplements.
I don't know how, that's one area I don't know about. He was asking about supplements because the earth is depleted and the vitamins in vegetables aren't getting.
To a large extent, he's correct. And
Yes.
It's one of the reasons why you find that more and more the federal government, along with the teaching institutions now, is saying, that the big ag, you got to get away from eating stuff that's grown on the same soil.
Over and
God
over.
said you let the soil rest
Right.
every seventh year. The reason for that is it replenishes the minerals and everything that's necessary. Because you were talking about the minerals, I know you teasingly said eat the dirt, but the minerals that's in the dirt, the ionic minerals, get into the plant. They are then bound with the materials that are in the plant that we absorb.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not there, you do not get those. The other thing is the genetic pathways of plants. If you've only got 3 or 4 elements that you're feeding the plant so it grows, it looks like a tomato, but it's really not a tomato. It looks like a kale, but it's really not kale.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a reasonable facsimile thereof, but the fact of the matter is that more and more people are going organic.
Right.
And there is a big reason for that, and that is so we can get the food, because food should be your medicine, and today, as they're showing on the box, nothing in those boxes is worth eating, to be honest with you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
As you're saying, God designed us to eat a whole food, plant-based diet.
Mm-hmm.
Whole foods meaning the whole fruit, vegetable, or whatever, in its rawest form as you can eat it.
Right.
And that's the reason why that I'm so glad that I see things changing throughout the entire United States now. People are beginning to grow the foods with the nutrients in them that we really do need.
Right.
Because that's the reason why we have huge epidemics of diabetes and all the other cancers, etc. Because we're not really getting what we need in our foods.
Right. Right. All right. Any other question or comment that I probably don't know the answer to?
Big sun chips or Cheetos?
Neither. Those were from work. I was looking, what can I talk about? And those were in the cabinet. I'm like, good. No,
Right, no fiber in apple juice, correct?
correct.
Orange juice?
If it's pulp, that pulp has part of the fiber. But one problem with juices, and I didn't put the juices up there, but the juices are much higher in sugar, no matter what, because they're taking out everything except the sugar and a little bit of flavoring, a little bit of vitamins. So I don't drink juices. I use one juice, and you're going to think this is crazy, but straight up cranberry juice. And I use that in my smoothie because I know as you age, you get an increased risk of urinary tract infections. So I figure if I drink a little cranberry juice every day, I'm going to constantly keep my bladder nice and healthy. And that's the only juice I drink.
How about that pomegranate juice?
You'd be surprised how much sugar is in pomegranate juice. It's high in sugar.
Added sugar or?
No, just fruit sugar. Natural sugar, but it's still sugar made out of the glucose and the fructose.
So what if you just ate the pomegranate?
Yes, that's the way to go, because what is in the center? That seed, which is like packed full of fiber. Yeah, anytime you change it from the natural form, you're taking something away. Yes.
What about grape juice?
Same.
Wait. This is a grape juice that you, from scratch, you don't know water, no anything. This is what you,
Did you?
what you make.
Are you taking away the skin?
This, yes.
When you take away the skin, you're taking away the fiber.
So when you make your own grape juice from grapes,
You're still,
there is no,
there's no fiber. It's the skin that's got the fiber.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about B12?
Um,
Vitamin B12. Drink water before you brush your teeth.
I don't know a whole lot about B12. I know what you need it for, and I know where we get it, and I know where we got it originally, but we don't get it there anymore. But
It's what
what?
we're discovering now that as we grow the plants with every one of those minerals necessary, B12 is in them. Also, the omega
There you go.
are in these
Plants.
greens that you never found before. All this stuff is there. God designed it that way. The soils have just totally been depleted, folks. I'm telling you, that's the reason why that scientists now are beginning to study this thing a lot more.
So you can get it in your plants if they're grown.
Let me tell them one other one.
Yes, yeah. Bill had.
When you wake up in the morning, okay, don't go brush your teeth. You know why? Because your body develops B12 in your mouth. It's better to rinse your mouth out and swallow because you're getting B12 there. Small micrograms, but you're still getting it.
Say something about B12 in plants again for the allergy.
The plants are originally God designed the plants to be grown in soils that were loaded with ionic minerals. There are over 90 of these that we know about on the periodic table. We're now finding that as we plant the plants using these trace minerals, there are, like I said, 90 of them. Now, most of the soil out here in Florida, most of the soil in the United States, the amount of minerals that you get is 12 because it's gone. What happened to them? Were they here originally? Did God have them in our soil originally?
Yes.
What happened to the flood? What happened to our land?
They went all to the sea.
All out in the water now. And that's the reason why they've been planting plants using salt water and finding that these genetic pathways are being increased now, and that some of these elements that we didn't realize were in the plants, because who would have thought that you would have as much omega-3 oil, which you normally get in fish or seeds, right? You know what omega-3 oil is,
Yeah.
right? You eat fish oil, right? That's where you get it. Well, why is it in fish oil?
So they eat the plants.
Well, they're in the water.
The
That's
plants
one
are-
thing. The other thing is they're in seeds, but now we're finding, in fact, we've done analysis on some of the stuff that we're growing with these minerals now, and we're using all 90 of them. We're finding that it has omega-3 oils in it, in broccoli, in kale, in cauliflower, and also B12. So all these things are there, and the new plants and the new stuff that's going to be done in the future is going to be more. I tell you, the stuff we're doing right now, we'll be doing in the villages will have all this material in it, folks.
So
It's going to be important because that's the thing that I've always wanted to do. And I'm glad God opened the door for me to do it now. And I have an interest in the world out here, not just with Adventists. People are interested in this stuff. And so this is going to be a real thing in the future. And I've talked to many scientists and a lot of people, farmers, that are realizing this now, beginning to grow their vegetables this way. So it's going to be good in the future.
Richard, did you have a question?
Yeah, two things. One was this beet powder, that you can get and mix it
I don't know. I mean, no. But from my knowledge, coconut isn't GMO, and I'm not sure why you would need it organic. What difference organic, unless it's just the soil, like he's talking about, the soil that it's grown in, so it has more of those micronutrients. But generally speaking, it's about the same. And so, and the bee, I don't know anything about the bee stuff. I know, I'm one of these people that my mind is just like trying to collect everything I can, but there's a lot of stuff I still have to learn.
You may comment on beef powder, primarily it's processed, and some of the enzymes are destroyed. So you really do need to get the enzymes by eating a little beef. Now there's new processes out on that as well to maintain the integrity of the enzymes, where you dry it at a low temp, keeping the enzymes intact that your body needs. You need the enzymes from plants. We all do. But that's the reason why when you're eating dried fruits and stuff like this, a lot of times if they use excessive heat to dry them, it destroys the real, what I would consider the basic nutrition you need. And coconut oil, I would not eat coconut oil.
I use it for a moisturizer, and that's all I use coconut oil for. It's my skin moisturizer.
Is it a temperature factor that
Say it loudly so I can hear you.
the question is what would be the problem with coconut oil? Is it how they process it?
It's saturated.
It's the type of oil you're eating.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's already saturated.
Coconut is good. Coconut is good. We're talking not.
Coconut has the fiber and it has other things. All right, any other questions? We've run over time. Everybody can wake up now. I'm thrilled that you guys didn't have your phones out, unless, like my students, sometimes I have to get after them. But I enjoyed doing this presentation. Let's end with a word of prayer.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, thank you so much for the lessons that you've shared with us, and help us to remember that you know what's best, and your plan is the best plan for us and for our body, and help us to make the changes we need to have that holy temple that you want to dwell in. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Karen. We appreciate it so much.
Oh, you're welcome.